You're live.
Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Trotwood-Madison Board of Education Thursday, May 21st, 2020 regular meeting, live stream via YouTube in accordance with COVID-19 recommendations, Google Meets virtual meeting at 5:30 to order. Ms. Allen, will you call the roll?
Yes. Mrs. Bozeman?
Yes.
Mrs. Jeter Freeman?
Yes.
And Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Hello? Not me?
Janice, you forgot Mr. Scarce.
Mr. Scarce, I didn't see him online. Mr. Scarce?
I can take a hint. Yes.
Oh, okay. The meeting has now been called to order. Madam President, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and we will mute.
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the... Let me start over. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I've known that since the first grade. I don't know why I lost my mind today.
Please edit that out.
We can because we live stream.
That's okay. That's okay. That's okay.
No, we're going to get this meeting
I'll
going
take it.
because I need
I'll
to
take it.
motion to adopt the agenda as presented. Thank you. Bozeman. Motion?
So moved.
Can I get a motion?
I'll second.
Great. We have a motion and a second. Any questions, additions, or changes?
The only change, I'm sorry. The only changes were there were some additions to the personnel agenda, but they were on the agenda that was forwarded at the beginning of the week. So they haven't been changed since then.
And
Okay.
same here, the appropriation document was updated and it's highlighted with that particular change as well.
Yeah, all those changes are highlighted.
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Well, Ms. Allen, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Mrs. Bozeman?
Yes.
Mr. Scarce?
Yes.
Mrs. Jeter Freeman? Mrs. Jeter Freeman? You're muted.
Yes.
And Ms. Moore?
Yes. The agenda has been adopted. Do we have any community comments? Luke? None? All right.
No, ma'am.
None? Thank you. Thank you very much. Next up, we have a presentation, 5-year forecast update. Ms. Allen?
Yes. I am going to present just 2 slides to you today, just as an update. So I will bring that up in a second. Okay, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, so this is just one screen. I just wanted to bring to the board's attention that the 5-year forecast that was presented last at the work session has had a few changes, and 2 of the changes were that for FY20, the $306,399 was put in on FY20, and then there was an additional 10% cut for state foundation funds for FY21. And so therefore, and let me just go over the screen, the forecast update. Obviously, this current COVID-19 pandemic, the situation is a lot of unanswered questions. It has presented a lot of challenges, obviously, to our 5-year forecast. And so we will submit a 5-year forecast tomorrow. And as we find out new information, this will be continually updated. The next time we do are required to submit a forecast is in November, but between now and November, if we deem necessary to submit a new 5-year forecast, we will. And so I just wanted to, a couple things. Obviously, our state and local resources is under extreme stress. 70% or more of our revenue is based on our state sources. And so therefore, if obviously everyone has been reading and listening to the newspaper and the newscast, is that the state, their state income and their revenue has taken significant hits because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And FYI, just property values are expected to remain level in 2020, so that's a good thing. And obviously, we're going to, as we look at the 5-year forecast, all of the resources are going to be obviously to help our kids, to update our curriculum, and then obviously to try to help to stabilize the tax rates for our taxpayers. One thing, we are projecting a positive ending cash balance throughout the entire forecast period. And so that's a good thing at this point, because we would not want to have a negative cash balance projected in FY24. So I was going to show you just the updated 5-year forecast, and I'll just go all the way to the bottom to show you what it looks like in FY24, 686,342. But as I said, as we close out the year for FY20, these numbers then will be moved over here to actual, and then we'll have another year, FY25, and those numbers obviously will need to be updated. So at this point, I just wanted to present that so that you could have an overall picture. The Finance Committee, I did go over this with the 2 members of the Finance Committee today. So that's all I had to share.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Allen. Any questions? Next up, we have our consent agenda. Item 4A, approval of meeting minutes from April 2nd, 2020, April 16th, and April 16th, 2020. Item B is approval of Meta Solutions Master Service Agreement for school year 2020 and 2021. Approval of donation is item C. I need a motion.
I'll move.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any question? Being none, Ms. Allen, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Mrs. Jeter Freeman,
Yes.
Mr. Norman Scarce,
Yes.
Mrs. Myra Bozeman,
Yes.
and Ms. Moore.
Yes, motion passes. Next item, report. We don't have any items there, so we're going to move right on down to the treasurer's report. Ms. Allen?
Yes. Okay. That is the approval for the 5-year forecast.
Okay. And okay. So we have the approval for the 5-year forecast. Need a motion to accept item A as presented.
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any questions? Being none, Ms. Allen, will you call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Scarce,
Yes.
Mrs. Jeter Freeman,
Yes.
Mrs. Bozeman,
Yes.
and Ms. Moore.
Yes, motion passes. Next item. You have item B, which is the approval of FY20. Okay.
Yes, and I
Amended
wanted
Go
to
ahead.
just say that we did change just one line on the appropriation that I presented last at the work session, and that was to increase Fund 6 by $372,750 because of the summer food program budget. And so that increased the food service line to $2,354,000. And so I just wanted to let you know that we needed you to approve that because they are starting to prepare for the summer food program.
I need a motion on treasurer's item B, approval of 20 amended appropriations.
I'll move.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions? Janice, the 370, where exactly did that come from? Were we short, or did we just feel that we might need more and didn't want to go back?
This is all summer food programs. The original appropriation is for the fiscal year regular programming. This is for summer food programs. So the largest line item was for milk, $100,000. That was the largest line, and then meat was $60,000. We had a $70,000 line item for wages, and so that total was $372,750. So I do have, and Marlon might be able to speak in addition to that.
Yeah, this was simply just putting on the summer food budget. In the past, we probably put it on and had the information to the treasurer's office. And then it was included in the appropriations increase. With Mr. Corbeil leaving, there may have just been a little communication gap, but what this is basically the budget that we just start charging all of our summer food purchases to. So we got that, and it's usually about that every year. So now we can start charging summer food purchases and reimbursements to this line.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Howard. Okay, if there are no more questions, Ms. Allen, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Jeter Freeman,
Yes.
Mrs. Bozeman,
Yes.
Mr. Scarce,
Yes.
and Ms. Moore.
Yes, motion passes. Item C, treasurer's report.
Just an approval for the financial reports. And that is included in your board docs. The first one is the cash reconciliation report for April. And it has bank statement balances and our investment balances of total $36,605,101.59. The outstanding vendor checks, $983,153.12. There was a carryover adjustment of $68.48. So with the adjusted bank balance of $35,622,016.95, that equals exactly what the district balance on the Meta system is. The next one is the spending plan, or Form SM2, that indicates for April 2020 revenues for actual and for fiscal year to date, our expenditures, total expenditures, monthly actual and fiscal year to date. And then you can see at the bottom of the report is ending cash balance and outstanding encumbrances. The last schedule is checks over $1,000 for April 2020. Finance Committee had two questions on two checks. One was for the University of Dayton, and that was in the amount of $15,500, check 94654. That is for a contract for a school counselor. And that is for the Mother Bruner Auxiliary Services. So that's Fund 401. And then the second question was, there was a check made back out to ourselves, and that was check 94737 in the amount of $6,906.17. And again, that is a Mother Bruner administrative cost, and that's 4% of what their total revenue is, and they pay that back to the district. And so that's what those two checks were for.
Thank you. I need a motion for treasurer's item C as presented.
So moved.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions? Being none, Ms. Allen, will you call the roll?
Mr. Scares,
Yes.
Mrs. Bozeman,
Yes.
Mrs. Jeter Freeman,
Yes.
and Ms. Moore.
Yes, motion passes. Next, thank you very much. We appreciate it, Ms. Allen. Next item is superintendent's report.
Good evening. The only item I have this evening is the personnel agenda. Again, there were some additions to the personnel agenda from our last meeting, from the work session. The additions were for summer school, additional summer school support for social workers, adding the social workers on through the summer to continue providing support to students and just not pulling away from them after we close out the school year. The food service staff for summer foods also were added. And all of those items are highlighted in bold. None of these, from summer school to social workers or food service, are positions that come out of general fund monies. They are summer school is grant funded. The social workers will be charged to student wellness, and food service will be charged to the 006, which is the food service fund. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But that is all I have as far as personnel is concerned.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. I need a motion to accept superintendent item A as presented.
I'll move.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions?
Yes.
Being none, Ms. Allen, will you? Oh,
No,
yes.
that's a question.
Yes.
Yes.
What does summer school look like? And what
Great
is their role?
question. Great question. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Mrs. Scarce. Go ahead, finish.
And what does their role kind of consist of? And is anybody even interested in participating in summer school?
Great question. Ms. Minor is on with us this evening, and she will be reviewing our plans for summer school. She's spoken to them a couple times, but at this point, she's ready to finalize that and start speaking to that a little later. So if we can just wait just a couple of minutes, if you're
Sure.
okay with that, she can speak to what summer school is going to look like.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Allen, will you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Jeter Freeman,
Yes.
Mrs. Bozeman,
Yes.
Mr. Scares,
No.
and Ms. Moore.
Yes, motion passes. Next item is item 8, discussion items and updates. Item A is the graduation update virtual ceremony. Mr. Howard?
Yes, today, I believe we forwarded all of the pre-recorded items to Mrs. Allen over at the high school. She is the media technical teacher over at the high school, and she will be working with a group of staff to finalize the virtual program using footage from the pre-recorded speeches, the student ceremony we had this past Saturday, and we anticipate having that together sometime next week. And as soon as we get it, I will share it with the board, and we will afterward we'll send it out for review to students and families. And we use I believe we are using the Johnston's platform.
Okay, and that was a free platform, correct?
Yes, it was a free platform that Johnston's provided to all of its schools.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. We appreciate that. What was the final number of graduates that we had?
I believe we were at 197. I can get you that exact number. I'll send a text here shortly, and hopefully by executive session I can have that exact number. But like right under 200.
Okay. Yeah, that's really good. Okay, thank you. Any other questions on the graduation update? If none, item B is the 2020-21 school registration. What's happening there? What does that look like?
Registration is planned for kickoff June 1st. Ms. Love Allen, are you here? Can you hear me, Ms. Love Allen?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, it's okay. You want to just give a real quick synopsis of what we've been doing as far as registration? We've been putting a lot of work into getting ourselves prepared for registration, and Ms. Love Allen has kind of been spearheading that. You want to just give us a real quick summary about what's been going on, especially what we did today via the webinar?
Yes. So today, several of us went through a webinar and pretty comprehensive. It was fast-paced. Final forms registration. Just learning what Final Forms is and the process and the registration process and how that's going to look on Final Forms. Today was, I believe, the second and third of a 4 series of trainings. Yesterday, there was a training for the athletic side of things, the coaches and the trainers. Today, it was gatekeepers, if you will. So our clerical support, our secretaries, administrators, some academic staff. And then the second part was our advisors, and club leaders. So, and tomorrow will be the medical staff. So Mr. Helper and the nurses, and possibly even the athletic trainers again. So that was done today. From that training, I've since heard from multiple clerical supports and secretaries. They said that was really good, but it was super fast. So can we get something a little bit slower and more hands-on? So the trainer has already agreed to do a gatekeeper training part 2, if you will, next Thursday at noon. And that is going to be exclusively just for our secretaries, building secretaries, clerical supports, and a couple of our central office secretaries who may have to support the registration process if we have parents and caregivers that come in through central office that need some help and support. To date, we have had some registrations come in for open enrollment. That's steadily moving forward. And you guys may have already heard the radio spot on U92 advertising our registration process and our timeline. And we are working towards getting our open enrollment application on the website if it's not already there, and getting some flyers and notifications on the website as well as Facebook so that parents will know when and how to begin to complete this process for registration this school year. It will be different, but I think once we get past our learning curve and become comfortable with using the new platform of Final Forms, I really think it's going to help with the accuracy and efficiency of the registration process. And it's definitely going to save us money because we won't be printing off a bunch of paper to do registration. So that's going to be a nice savings. And then for our parents, once they get past, how this is different moving forward, they will just have to update. So they won't have to do the same process from beginning to end as they've had to do year after year. They will simply just go into the system and make their updates and changes, and then they'll be finished. And it's the same side with athletics. So we're moving at a pretty fast pace. It's a pretty aggressive move, but I think, we'll get there. And folks are excited, nervously excited, but excited that we're taking this big leap. So we're moving. I'm pretty positive and optimistic about it. And we're making good time. I think we'll be ready by June 1.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I do have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I noticed that I heard you say that we have a radio spot out there. What other ways are we advertising? Because at least for me, I've been working from home since March 11th, and the only time I listen to the radio is on my way to work. And so I haven't listened to it since March 11th. And so there may be some parents who are like me who haven't listened to the radio because they're working from home. Right. So have we thought of other ways maybe to get the word out besides the radio spot, since maybe people aren't listening?
I can speak to that a little bit. So Catapult is engaged with a social media platform that they're going to start working on for us here shortly. They did the same thing with us last year with regards to social media. We'll definitely use our all call system again, our all call formats, and then also we have about 2 months left on our contract for key ads. So we are going to put some posters out with regards to registering now or now registering, and then we can run those through August before we have to change our ads out on the billboard. So those three concepts specifically are kind of what we're working with at this point.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
Question. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Is a part of the registration process targeting those families that may want to choose to continue their online learning experience?
No. What we're doing with that is, and we actually, I was going to talk about this a little bit. Miss Kish, you keep stealing on my thunder, but it's okay. I was going to talk about that a little bit this afternoon. Lisa and her team have put together a survey that we're going to be sending out to families just to see what their perception, what their concerns, how they feel about online learning. It's a short survey, and we're going to try to gather some information sooner than later with regards to that. So Lisa will probably have that survey done and sent out through the Google platforms, and we'll make an all call by the end of the week just to get a gauge on how families feel about the online platform, how many folks would be interested in still continuing that, how families feel about coming back to school in the fall, so on and so forth. And she'll have a draft of that to me. I think she said tomorrow, and then we'll go. Lisa, you want to speak to that a little bit and just talk about how you guys got that together from another district?
Yeah, so Troy City Schools today on their website, they have a survey just asking families whether they would be interested in online learning when we return in the fall. And we thought that was an excellent way early in this, before the summer even starts, to get a gauge on how many families, what are they thinking, how many of them may not feel comfortable with their children coming back in the fall, so we can be prepared. And so we've got our media tech team working on the survey and making sure it's aligned to our platforms to make sure everyone has access. The Google Classroom push out, as well as Facebook and the website, just to make sure we're getting everyone's feedback.
Thank you. I think a part of my fear is that we'll only target the families that we already serve in surveys like that. Not that the survey or anything like that is a bad idea, but if we lose the opportunity to grow our bandwidth and capacity as far as student enrollment to try to attract families that we're not targeting with the survey, then we lose that opportunity to increase our student base. And so I guess my question wasn't more so geared towards the families who are already a part of Trotwood who want to continue online learning, because there may be some and there may not, but also those families that are not a part of the district right now, but would want to see an online learning option through Trotwood-Madison City Schools. Does that make sense?
It does, and I think we had spoke to this a little earlier, right prior to the shutdowns and the pandemic, and we talked about with this onset coming. So what I would definitely need to do is maybe have a conversation with Dr. Cosby and see what that looks like and get some of that information out there, because we're anticipating a couple different scenarios, and I'll talk about that in E when we get to D. But yeah, I agree. We probably need to be able to advertise that, ultimately getting to a point where we have ourselves a full-fledged virtual school or academy, which we discussed prior. I agree.
And the other side about that is how are we? I'm probably going to be a stickler for the remainder of the year about attracting those families that are at charter schools. Like, now is the time, not to use, poor terminology, but now is the time for us to take advantage of what is happening and get our kids back to our school system. There is no reason, I don't think, that we should not be actively targeting every single family at Trotwood Preparatory School until they are out of business. Like, we have to be able to do that. And we have to be able to do it intentionally and consistently. Like, I don't want us to just focus on the families that are already a part of our district. We have to be we have to go after the ones who we don't think will come here, who aren't already here. Because if we don't increase student enrollment, if you think that what the state cut now, I'm telling you, there are more cuts coming. And if we don't take it upon ourselves to increase our enrollment and bottom line, we're going to be up the creek without a paddle. So that's all I got. We got to go get those kids on purpose.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we've had some discussion around this, and now we just got to figure out how we do that, because it's a very competitive market. Being home, working from home, and Myra, I know you and Vanessa have been getting all those flyers as well that are coming in the mail, and they're just recruiting kids for their programs. And, again, Mr. Scaris made a point about Trotwood Preparatory. They are really and truly perpetrating to be us. And, if you try to Google Trotwood schools, they pop up first, and they come up first in any order of electronic communication. And I have families that have actually reached out to me, and they don't even go to our school, and they're thinking they're part of our district. So, and there are people who just think that they're an umbrella under what and who we are. So I agree, Mr. Scaris, we do have to be aggressive, especially now. We've been talking about being aggressive over the last few years. So definitely a point of discussion for now, so that we can brainstorm and also entertain the recommendations from senior leadership as to how we do that. I know we were knocking on doors. Do you remember, guys, at one point they were knocking on doors and passing out flyers and all kinds of stuff? Well, with the pandemic going on, we have to have a different strategy. But again, we need to be front and center to get their attention, because now people are making the decisions where their kids go.
Yeah, and I don't think it's too late at all. I think definitely over the next couple of weeks, we need to try to, we've been trying to get through so many things. We we need to, and try to formalize a strategy, maybe where we gear directly to those kids and send them something, put some caller information out. So I think working with Dr. Cosby over the next couple of weeks, we can put something in place and share with the board what we're going to do directly and intentfully for those charter school kids. I don't disagree at all, and I don't want to say it was off the radar, but it was one of those things that we definitely discussed and we need to make sure we follow back up on.
Thank you, Mr. Scaris. Personnel and staffing, Mr. Howard.
Well, we are still actively hiring only vacant positions. We are not hiring any additional staffing or any additional positions, with the understanding that if things change, then we will proceed with what we need to do. But as of right now, we have very few open teaching positions, especially going with the COVID-19 exemption and bringing everybody back and putting them back on that same contractual and evaluation status that they were for 1920. We have maybe one open pair position. And then we have a open Spanish teacher position that was vacated. So we are still actively interviewing folks via virtual platforms with the intent that we are, our plan is not to bring in any additional staffing this year.
Okay. Any questions? I'm sorry. Is there someone? How is it looking along the lines of being at capacity? I mean, are we having any issues trying to attract specific individuals for math or science?
Not at this point because of the COVID exemption. If there were, a lot of people are sitting still, just not here, but across the state. So if there was more movement, if there was, more opportunities for recruitment, I would anticipate that being, something that under normal circumstances, that would be, one of our, I don't want to say concerns, but one of our points of emphasis. But right now, based upon, what's going on across the state with this COVID-19 exemption, we're not in a bad place. We're not in a bad place at all.
Okay. We're in item D now. Mr. Howard, you were starting to talk about the district fall plan.
Right. So met with the county superintendents today. We have our weekly Thursday meeting, and everybody again is still kind of at a standstill with what school is going to look like in the fall. There was some information that came out from the CDC. There was some information that came out from ODE, all with some conflicting guidance. And then the undertow is that the governor is ultimately going to make a decision, is going to just come in and say, this is what we're going to do. So as of now, what's on the table for us and most districts across the state are three options. Option one would be everybody comes back in the fall. We don't know what that looks like specifically, but if that's the option, then we have to make those adjustments based upon the guidance and the standards that are put out. Option two would be kind of a blended, abbreviated, mixed schedule where you may have a half a group in one time, a half a group in the other day, and then maybe Friday, everybody's off 2 days for A through F and 2 days for F through Z, or however we would identify that. And then Friday would be a virtual day, some semblance of in the building and virtual learning. And then option C would be everybody's virtual until there's a determination that there's a treatment or a vaccine, which would be the first of the year. So those are the options that are kind of out there a little bit. And I want to pull Dr. Cosby in just a minute, if you guys don't mind, because she can also kind of speak to this just a little bit. Is that okay with the board? Just to kind of speak where?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
The good thing about what's happening right now is Marlon and I are on two different superintendents meetings. So we get to hear from, like I hear Hamilton County information and he's hearing Montgomery County. And it is the same, that we need to prepare basically for those three options. Everybody returns. It's still not going to be the same because it's going to come with some caveats like the distancing and probably mask and some criteria that we're going to have to handle. And then the blended one is that some of the kids would stay home and have virtual learning, and then others would be in the building. And the question for that would be, how do we determine, who gets to stay home? Is it just because they want to, or is it because they do better, or because their parents are afraid to send them in? But that's all things that we will get some direction on, I'm sure. And then we may have to make some decisions about what to do with that. And then all virtual, which would change our budgeting. Marlon and I sort of talked a little bit about that today, needing to make sure everybody has the proper equipment at home and they're able to access the internet. So, yeah, there are three almost like totally different options, but we're both hearing the same thing when we're on our meetings, and we can, make these plans. But the problem with picking one and saying, this is what we're going to do and putting all your resources that way is that if the guidance comes out and says, no, you're doing something else, then that might be a little bit harder to do. It sounds like the governor is working on schools now, and so hopefully whatever they decide will come out soon.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Fall sports, I guess that rolls right into the fall school year because that is questionable.
Well, so there was some information that came out today from the Ohio High School Athletic Association, and again, you know, one of the things that and this is a soapbox that most of the superintendents are on. One of the things that happens is that, you know, something takes place in the State House. The governor may say something, and then people react, and then there's a thought process that takes place. Then all of a sudden people say, well, maybe we can't do that. We shouldn't do that. So the other day, I don't know if you guys happened to listen to when he said that non-contact sports we're going to allow non-contact sports. So he was talking about baseball. He was talking about tennis. He was talking these non-contact sports. Well, from our understanding, his intent was little leagues and club sports and AAU sports and things like that. Well, everybody in the school districts said, okay, non-contact sports. Now you just said close the facilities until June 30th, but now you're saying non-contact sports. Which one is it? So today, OSHA came out with some guidance with non-contact sports as a reflection of what the governor said. So there's some guidance that just came out today. I haven't read through it. Myself, Mike, and Frank we're going to kind of get together tomorrow and just kind of talk about that, because it talks about opening up your facilities to fall athletes, regardless of the sport, under some certain circumstances. And we have to make sure that we totally understand what that means, because we also think that within a week or so, it's going to change, because he made a statement, but he was specifically, from what we gather, speaking to little leagues and things like that, because all of that stuff has shut down, not specifically OSHA sports. So this guidance came out midday. We're going to meet about it tomorrow. And then once I have a understanding and a little more information, I can update the board and send that information to the board.
Thank you. Questions? Summer school.
Summer school. Lisa's on, and she can kind of give you an update on where we are with summer school.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. So we have a full summer school planned from grades K all the way to 12. Of course, at the high school, it would be credit recovery, and our counselors are actively getting kids registered for that and setting that up. It will be all virtual online, so we're preparing and making sure all students that need them will have the Chromebooks and be able to access the technology and the curriculum. At the middle school level, it's just a very small piece. We don't really have numbers yet for their registration because we're still recruiting. But at the K-5 level, we have 170 students that have registered. And so at that level, the program, and I know Reverend Scarce was asking about what it looks like. Our goal was to provide a quality virtual learning experience. So if we had to go to a virtual academy, what does that look like? So what we have set up is Monday through Thursday instruction with reading, math, STEM projects. We bought hands-on projects that we'll be handing out. And we have 2 extracurricular or engagement activities. We have music technology and gymnastics, all online. We will be providing learning kits to the families that will include the resources for the hands-on projects, as well as computers for those that need them. The formal program is Monday through Thursday, but Friday, we're partnering with community partners like the library and some others to provide virtual field trip experiences, story time, book time, things like that on Friday. So we're excited about it. We've actually sent letters out to the parents of everybody who's registered. Next week, they will start coming to central office in small groups. We already have them divided up to pick up their learning kits. And then we have a virtual open house for all families on Friday, the 29th. It will start, all the summer programming will start on June 1st.
Any questions?
So you said for the middle school, we only have a few students?
Yeah, that's the only grade band we're having trouble recruiting. And again, you know, we understand they've been doing online learning in their age group and the adolescents. So that's where it's still offered. But the counselors and teachers are still trying to recruit. But obviously, we know we'll have the numbers at the high school, and we already have the numbers for the elementary kids.
Yeah. You know, now that we're doing a lot of virtual things, and I'm not sure, but can we look to see if maybe Apple provides that virtual training for coding or other types of STEM programs? Because I think the students are burnt out of the regular day-to-day learning online. But I think if we infuse them or we present them or offer them different kinds of opportunities to engage with virtual classes, they might be more open. I think it's an opportunity for us to kind of look and see what else we can expose them to.
Yes. Thank you.
I do have one other question, Lisa. I think if I remember correctly, the last time you talked about this, you mentioned that this was going to be kind of like the groundwork for the virtual academy, or if we would have to go completely virtual in the fall. Is that still the case, even though we don't have any students at the middle school, and we're basically focusing on credit recovery in the high school? Are we still creating, content and getting platforms ready in the event that we do decide just to be completely virtual in the fall?
I'm glad you asked that question, because we do have a learning management system that is a K-12 that we're partnering with the county for. We'll be using that through the summer to see how it works. Our goal is we're hoping we get some 6th, 7th, and 8th graders so we can see how it looks with them as well. We also have training that the teachers will be going through the summer through 4 modules, and they'll get more information on it later, but that will provide them some really intensive training beyond the Google Classroom, so they really know it's the training you would get if all you're doing is virtual teaching. And it also will support them when they do face-to-face in the buildings too. It's a blended learning PD, and it's 4 different modules that'll be all the next phase of the work, but we'll be using that through the summer. We also have set up to do online testing from home. How will that look? What if the state says, well, we're not canceling testing 2 years in a row. So we'll be doing a model of a pilot of that with our summer school program, and we'll be able to give feedback and go through the kinks now instead of waiting until, we're into the school year.
Okay. Yeah, I thought that's what you said you were going to try to get up and rolling. So I'm glad that actually happened.
The 3 key things from our research is we must have a strong learning management system, an online assessment system, and the professional development. So we're ready to roll with that.
Perfect. Thank you, Ms. Minor.
And to add to that just a little bit too, devices. We are actively trying to replenish all of the devices that are end of life. These devices, after about 5 or 6 years, they'll no longer take a software update. So they become end of life and they become a part of a recycling program. So we've been working with the tech team operations, working with myself to ensure that we have enough devices that if we have to go either way, next year we can definitely move ourselves to a true one-to-one format, and we're really excited about Lisa and what she's put together. And also today, and I shared this with Lisa. I don't know if you guys remember, Mr. Andrews talked about the Verizon Innovative Learning Program. We talked about that at the earlier board retreat. I completed the application for that today and submitted it today. It's a very, very competitive program, but if we get selected, we would possibly get up to 700 additional devices for the district. So I'm hoping that we can be in the running for that. It usually takes about a month and a half for them to acknowledge the receipts of the applications and then ultimately determine who they select. But we believe that device-wise, we will be ready, and we've also purchased hotspots for those families that we feel that but we know that need the connectivity. So we technically will be ready whichever way we go.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. Board retreat. The date is going to be June 20th, Saturday. We're looking at 9 a.m. and no later than noon. Mr. Howard, were you able to communicate with the building leadership?
Yeah, from the responses I got back, I think everybody is fine with that. I'm waiting on one other response, but I think everybody will be okay with that. If something changes, I'll let you know. But that date will be shared as the date for the retreat with the administrators.
Is that in person?
Currently, it wasn't scheduled to be in person. We were looking at a virtual platform when we initially discussed the retreat as a whole. So that's something that the board can discuss, as well as what the agenda is going to look like.
All right, thank you.
We just wanted to make sure that we had a date and the time, because after the end of the month, we would not be able to have all parties involved. I know the assistant principals and a few others would not be there. So we just want to make sure that we can get as much participation as possible so we can get a good insight on how we're going to proceed next year, what they need, what we can help with or assist with. And just really and truly, this is all new going into the fall in this pandemic. So what ideas they have on the table, what they're thinking about doing individually as a collective body, and maybe some best practices even with came out of this last semester. So Kim will be sending everybody an email, and if we could maybe work to get some good information out there so that we can have a really good retreat, whether it be virtual or in person. Any questions or comments? Okay, being that, we'll go on. Ms. Allen?
Well, I just wanted,
Yes.
I just wanted to say congratulations to Michael McCray, principal, and his staff for an outstanding high school graduation. I felt the love, I felt the excitement. It was so well put together. And I know with the discussion today with Mr. Howard, that a lot of principals are asking about that. And it's so funny. My sister, he reached out to my sister in Chicago. Now my sister is reaching back out to him because the state of Illinois has lifted their ban. So I think we set the bar very high. And I just wanted to say it was wonderful. And I was proud to be a part of it.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. Superintendent comments?
I'll echo Mrs. Allen's comments with regards to that. We met with our weekly superintendent's meeting, and it's funny. I've got a meeting I've set up a meeting with Mr. McCray, and 3 other district principals, I believe. I think it's 3 at this point right now that are interested in getting a gauge of what we did and how we did things. The word got out that we had a really nice ceremony, and the fact that more people were able to take part in it has really been the positive, because a lot of the districts are restricting the number of guests to 4 or 5. And as if you were out there, you saw we had some families that had 20, 25 people with them, depending on which mode of vehicle they chose to use. But we said three cars, and a car could mean a flatbed truck. We didn't put any restrictions. To me, was still, topped it all. When they came around there in that flatbed, and then those 3 limousines, and it kind of topped it all. But kudos to that staff. Kudos to Mike and Mr. McCray and his staff, and they're actively working on actively working on completing the virtual celebration. And again, once we get that, I'll make sure we share it with the board.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Howard.
No problem.
Do we have a student rep on this evening? Ryan Allen?
No, ma'am.
Okay. You know what? She has graduated and gone on.
No.
I don't blame her. All right. Okay. Next up, board comments. Mr. Scarce, please.
No comments.
Okay. Ms. Jeter Freeman.
I just echo the comments of Mr. Howard and Miss Allen. The graduation was so nice. And I think the students were a little surprised when they drove up and they saw the stage, they heard the music, and all of their family were there. And it was really, really nice. And I want to extend my thanks to all of the teaching staff that came out to greet their students that were graduating. It was really, really a really nice celebration. So kudos to the staff, to Mr. McCray, to all of you.
Thank you, Ms. Jeter Freeman. Vice President Bozeman.
Yes, big shout out to everyone for finishing strong. The year's finishing. I know it had a rough ending here, but we're finishing strong and smooth. And so that's all good and great. I didn't attend the graduation, but my social media was flooded with beautiful pictures and video. And that was my neighbor with that flatbed truck. And I saw that leave out of my neighborhood. I couldn't believe it. We had a whole video of it, and I kept seeing all these cars decorated, and I was so excited and happy. And I thought to myself, when my son graduated, we only had 5 tickets. We couldn't even take our whole family to the graduation. And so how lucky is it to get to take 3 carloads of people and just have all the attention focused on your kid for that 30 seconds or whatever it was. And it was fantastic. It was creative. It was beautiful. Big shout out to the high school staff, everyone who put everything into it. It was great. All kinds of love. Everybody's looking up to us right now. It's great.
Wow. Well, I don't think there's anything left for me to say because I echo all of that. It was amazing. Oh, a limo. There were 2 limos. I know there had to be 30 people in each of those limos. Okay, I swear. It was just, it's just really and truly incredible how creative our kids are and their families are. They had poster-sized pictures and, the decorations, and they drove up and some of everything. We had graduates show up on motorcycles. A motorcycle. It gave to be during this huge big celebration. Now, what was really interesting is usually we're all formal, so they march in and everybody's formal and the gowns are all zipped. They came as they were. They had their best Sunday best or fun best or whatever best. But they allowed to be exactly who they are. And it was just, it was an awesome, awesome, awesome event. I was so proud. Mr. McCray, the staff, they did an excellent job. Even when it started raining, the rain didn't stop this. just kept moving right along. And I don't know if you guys noticed the cars at all. Mr. Howard had that extra car did make a little bit of a difference. There had to be about 600 cars, maybe more. But it was so organized. The Trotwood police gave, lent a hand, made sure that people were out of the street. And what I understand is some of the wait time was an hour and a half. Parents shared that with me, but they had so much fun in that hour and a half because we can't keep families and parents away from each other. And I literally believe they were partying for the entire hour and a half getting up to the stage. So it was just a phenomenal event. And kudos to the staff. Kudos, Mr. Howard, for your leadership in organizing and putting all that together. And I'll tell you, just a really strong in place for their students as well. I know one got rained out yesterday. That was the 8th graders. They have actually, that staff put together goodie bags. Even though they couldn't have the event, kids have to come pick up their stuff from their lockers. So they got goodies. And I think tonight it's the little kids, I believe. And that building is going on right now. That building is doing something. So we are celebrating every building and every child. So I mean, that's what we're all about. I sat in on a middle school virtual meeting that Mr. Gibson had, just giving information to a staff. And it's really good. It's been consistent throughout the district. So again, kudos. For the virtual though, Mr. Howard, we want to make sure that we make it an extension of the graduation, because I'm going to tell you, those valedictorian, the speeches, the president's speeches, the class officer speeches, the entertainment that's in it. I mean, it is going to be even better than the drive up. I mean, I'm going to be honest, because I saw kind of some of the workings behind it, and it should be an opportunity where students are able to invite their family from across the country at 9:00 or whatever, and it airs, the link pops up or what have you, because it is going to be a just incredible, unbelievable virtual ceremony, which they will have for the rest of their lives. So again, I just want to say thank you. In addition to that, we've had these meetings this way, and I'm going to open it up to the board. I know things are shaking loose a little bit. Mr. Scares did ask me about, how are we going to be doing virtual meetings? And that's up to you guys. I mean, I'd like you guys to weigh in on that as a team. If you like the virtual meetings, that's great. If you guys feel that maybe there's an opportunity for us to do the social distancing in the building and what all that looks like, that is definitely a consideration for the board. One thing I can say, we've had more engagement this way than we've ever had in my life on the board or in the district, where people are actually going to the YouTube, 163 views and that sort of thing. And they are, because we are so socially distanced, it gives them an opportunity to get the information. They don't have to leave home, and they watch it any time of the day, night, weekend, or what have you. So there's a lot of considerations, but I really would like to open that up for discussion as a board collectively to find out what your pleasure is. And then we can go from there. Fair enough. With that said, I would like to have a motion to go into executive session to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official, investigation of charges or complaints against a public employee, official, licensee, or regulated individual per BOE policy 0166 and ORC 121.22 G1 and B, to discuss details relative to security arrangements and emergency response protocols for a public body or a public office per ROC 121.22 G6. Official action may be taken.
So moved.
Motion on. Thank you.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions? Being none, Ms. Allen, will you call the roll?
Mr. Scares,
Yes.
Mrs. Jeter Freeman,
Yes.
Mrs. Bozeman,
Yes.
and Ms. Moore.
Yes, motion passes. We will now go into executive session at 6:35 p.m. And thank you all for joining us.